The Nintendo Switch 2, yeah, it has a problem. And we have to talk about this problem because I'm not sure when the problem's actually going to go away. And it's a problem that is multifaceted. It is one that there's not really a clear answer to. And I actually want to get your guys' thoughts on this now that we are, how many months has it been? God, it was June. So we're now in November. So we're about 5 months into this platform's existence. And the problem's still here. The problem, part of it, I guess, began back in April. But we'll dive into this in a moment. Before we do, just want to remind you quick, we do have a couple of giveaways going on. We'll be giving away 3 copies of Age of Imprisonment and 5 copies of Kirby Air Riders. You can enter through the respective links down in the pinned comment or the description. And before we dive further, I just want to note this is going to be kind of a rambling video. There's not really going to be a lot of cuts, a lot of editing, a lot of slashing things in. This is just raw, unfiltered conversation about the state of Nintendo Switch 2. And to be clear, before I dive in, I actually love this thing. Love's maybe a bit of a strong term. I love my children. I love my fiance. I love my friends. I really like this thing. As a machine, it feels well put together. It runs my games really well, improves most of my Switch 1 library. The games that have come out, I've actually enjoyed for the most part. There's some minor gripes I have here and there. Obviously, I think the visual quality of the textures and the flat buildings and the graphics in like Legends EA is kind of a hot mess. And I don't know if it's an art style problem. I don't know what's going on, but there's something with that. That's a whole general issue with the Pokemon Company, not really specific to Switch 2, but it's part of the Switch 2 conversation. Obviously, Mario Kart 8, you can see here, I played Mario Kart 8 recently. You don't even see Mario Kart World in my recent played. Because I wanted to double check something between the two games. And again, Mario Kart World's just not something I'm playing a whole lot right now. That's part of the conversation as well. And what is that conversation? What is the big problem with Nintendo Switch 2? And let's just be honest, this probably extends beyond Nintendo Switch 2 and goes to Nintendo in general. But the Switch 2 seems to be the antithesis of this problem. And that is the Nintendo Switch 2 has a messaging problem. Quite literally. It's got a significant messaging problem. And there's no one reason that it has a messaging problem. Look, we could talk about all the negative content creation. We could talk about the positive content creation, the toxic positivity, the toxic negativity. I actually don't care about any of that. What I actually care about is the messaging around this platform and how there's been a problem with it really since April. Back in April, they had the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, and they weren't transparent in that Direct. They didn't reveal, honestly, anything that was like super impressive. DK Bonanza obviously was sort of the highlight, but there was nothing like massively impressive to make this system stand out from Switch 1. The UI has nothing in it that makes it stand out from Switch 1. It is still a Switch, same family of systems. Well, that personally doesn't bother me. That is a messaging problem. It doesn't scream new generation. It just kind of screams, oh, here's a bigger Switch. Even when they talked about like the screen, right? They went in high detail on the screen at one point, did this whole, developer ask series around the screen talking about how, hey, they went back to LCD because it's better for HDR and yada, yada. And well, we all know that's kind of bullcrap. You could actually get better HDR with OLED. There at least was an argument that it might be a little too expensive to put in here on an already expensive platform. So at least they put in a decent quality LCD, right, for HDR, right? Except they didn't. The nits are low. The refresh rate's low. The latency, I guess I should say, is low. Not the refresh rate's 120 FPS, 120 hertz. Yeah, it's even that they just like that messaging around that. It was all positive in Welcome Tour. If you went and looked at that, it was all positive in the developer series. But then the reality is, no, the screen, if you came off Switch OLED, it just feels and looks worse, right? It is what it is. But it goes along with the total messaging of the Switch 2. Well, this stuff isn't deal breakers to me, and I absolutely feel like the Switch 2 has been worth my money. I do think that Nintendo is suffering from a messaging problem. Now, when we talk about suffering, we're about to have Nintendo's financials in a few days, and we're about to find out Switch 2 is probably still the fastest selling system of all time. Nintendo, like Donkey Kong Bonanza, probably sold pretty well. We've already heard, Legends EA sales. So, look, things are probably going all hunky-dory in Nintendo land. They might even adjust their sales of Switch 2 up. It might go from 15 million to 16 or 17 million. I got a feeling we could see an adjustment. Hell, maybe the adjustment goes down. I don't know. I don't have Nintendo's financials yet. The point is, I think the financials are going to look pretty rosy for Nintendo. So when we call this a problem, it's a perception problem. It's a messaging problem. It is not a factual business problem. Nintendo, the business, is doing really well. This is more so about the perception around this system, because whenever Switch 2 comes up in a casual conversation, which did happen, in fact, on Halloween, when I went out with my fiance to the local pubs, someone brought it up, not even knowing I was like a YouTuber that covers this. And someone was talking about, what is it, Metroid Prime 4 coming up? And they were like, hey, you're getting it for Switch 1 or Switch 2. And like one person just randomly said, well, I heard Switch 2, it's kind of an overpriced piece of shit. And I'm like, oh, okay. So one of the first times I've heard people kind of talk about it, but they're talking about what they heard. They're not talking about their experience, right? Obviously, I think Switch 2 is selling incredibly well. The numbers don't lie, but that's not the problem. The problem's the messaging. And I'm not going to blame YouTubers for this. I'm not going to blame social media for this. I'm going to blame Nintendo. Nintendo's to blame. When they put out that initial direct, right? Not only did they not have any like major showcase game that's like, hey, this is a game that doesn't look possible on Nintendo Switch 1. What they also didn't do is give transparency. There was no price of the games. There was no price of the system, no price of the amiibo or anything else they talked about in there. Pricing just wasn't present. Pricing came out after and probably wasn't present because they knew, hey, we're charging, $150 more than the original Switch. We are going to be charging $80 for Mario Kart World, and that's probably not going to be received very well. That goes into the grander issue with Nintendo's messaging. Their messaging has created a poor perception around everything. If you throw in the Pal World lawsuit that the internet's kind of mad at Nintendo about, you throw in obviously some of their policies, whether they're new or not, but because people got upset over pricing, then they started digging deeper to find more things to be upset about. That created a messaging issue. And again, Nintendo's own fault. At least they could have been upfront and transparent. That might have helped a little bit. And then we get to the fact that, everyone's like, wait for that September Direct, wait for that September Direct, wait for that September Direct. And like the big reveal was a Fire Emblem game, which has me excited, and like a Mario Tennis game and Yoshi. These are, announcements that excite me. But again, on the surface, none of them look like something we needed a new system for. Now, to be clear, PlayStation 5 has been going through this for, years now, pretty much since it came out. Every game that gets announced for PlayStation 5, people play it, they look at it, they feel like, man, this is a game that doesn't feel like we needed a new generation for. We could have just played it on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 4 Pro. And for the most part, they've been right because the games have come out on PlayStation 4. You didn't actually need a PlayStation 5 to play a majority of those games. So I guess they've been right. And that's what it feels like on Switch 2. Now, I will note, no, I don't think Donkey Kong Bonanza truly would function well on Switch 1, not with the way all the groundbreaking and all the terrain stuff works and all the voxels. No, I don't really think that would have ran well on Switch 1. In fact, they said it wouldn't. I don't think everything in Mario Kart World, like the 24 players, was probably realistic on Switch 1. It probably didn't have the processing power to do it. So, yes, I can recognize things that like, hey, these are why these games couldn't be done on Switch 1. But everyone's looking for something that blows their mind, and they're looking for one specific thing to blow their mind: visuals. And this is because visual quality has sort of defined generations. And I know some of you might go to point out, you Wii U owners, I was one of them, hey man, the visual quality didn't really have this huge leap from Wii U to Switch. Why is it a big deal now? Well, because the Nintendo Switch, the original, it's a hybrid. This is still a hybrid, the Switch 2. And as a hybrid, it didn't just replace the Wii U. Nintendo's biggest audience was actually the 3DS. And going from the 3DS to the Switch was a monumental leap forward. It's why people expected significantly more from Pokemon so far. The monumental leap forward didn't feel like the franchise matched that leap. That's part of the reason some people are upset today. So you get all that. You get more expensive games than ever, more expensive system than ever from Nintendo anyways. Obviously, there's more expensive systems out there. You get, not lack of transparency, not fully announcing everything. And it leads to this avalanche of negativity that is basically all self-created. Could have been avoided. I've been on record saying this since I played the game. No, I don't think Mario Kart World is worth $80. I don't. I still don't really understand why they're charging it other than they think they can get away with it. And they might get away with it. And they might go on to sell 30, 40, 50 million copies. I have no idea. But I bet you a majority of those copies will be bundles every holiday. I don't think we're going to see a lot of top 10 for Mario Kart in between. Not at $80. But we don't know yet. because the bundle still exists. So we're projecting. We don't know. Maybe January, February, March, when there's no bundles on the market, maybe Mario Kart World continues to be a top 10 seller. I think it's going to be falling off even in Japan, but could be wrong. So I guess we have to wait. Or maybe we don't, because maybe Nintendo could already tell that the only way people are buying Mario Kart World is essentially the bundle. I don't want to say the only way. This, obviously, some of you guys own the physical copy. I get it. You're outliers, I think. Could be wrong. Nintendo's in this precarious place where no matter what they do, it's never going to be good enough. And that's why I don't know that there's any answers. We have Age of Imprisonment next week. Who cares? It's Hyrule Warriors. We have a new Kirby Air Riders for the first time in like 20 years. Who cares? It's another, it's a spin-off game. Oh, we had a new 3D Donkey Kong. Reviewed incredibly well. Might be up for Game of the Year. Lots of people enjoyed it. But it's not 3D Mario, right? It's like lesser. It's lesser because it's not this other thing. Hey, how about a new IP? Oh, it's Dragon Drive. Okay. Is Dragon Drive even exciting people anymore? Did it ever? Heck, people were still talking about 1-2 Switch 5 months after Switch came out. I haven't even heard about Dragon Drive since its release. Nobody seems to be talking about it. Maybe people are playing it. I don't own it, so I don't know. But it's interesting. It's interesting because the Nintendo has a massive messaging problem. And this is furthered by other decisions Nintendo has made. Again, that's why I say it's all Nintendo's fault. If there's a Switch 2 edition, if you hear the word Switch 2 edition, sans Animal Crossing, and even then, what you're going to hear is a lot of negative feedback. Why? The prices are kind of weird. Why are we spending $70 for Breath of the Wild for essentially a 4K 60 FPS update? I get it. There's some additional map stuff and a phone app stuff, and I get it. Okay, I understand. There is additional things. But why are we paying $70 for Breath of the Wild in 2025, a 2017 game, and then it doesn't even include the DLC? Like, if it at least included the DLC, you could be like, okay, it's like an Ultimate Edition, a Deluxe Edition, a Director's Cut, right? It's got something packed into it that you already have to buy separate from Breath of the Wild. So it would actually feel like a decent deal because Breath of the Wild is still MSRP 60 with the $25 DLC. You're actually saving a smidge, but you're getting some additional perks on Switch too. Nintendo could have done that. They've made lots of money, billions of dollars on Breath of the Wild, let alone Tears of the Kingdom. They could have packed it in, and they didn't. Tears of the Kingdom. Look, I get it. It's not a very old game for Nintendo in terms of how Nintendo handles pricing. $80 for basically the same thing as Breath of the Wild. Now, there's no DLC to include. And I get that, like, those two games, you could just get for free if you have, like, the upgraded version of NSO. But $80 when you go to the store, it's what it says on the shelf next to that game. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, yeah, they included DLC. $80 on the shelf. Certainly doesn't look enticing, does it? Now, you don't need to have it. You could just buy the $60 game and still have fun with the base game, but it's still $80 on the shelf. It still doesn't look good. It's a messaging problem. Nintendo's messaging so far this generation has basically been, hey, we are the same Nintendo you know and love, except everything we give you is more expensive. It's tough to swallow. Now, some of it isn't their fault, right? Well, let me explain some of the things that aren't their fault. Tariffs, not their fault. They have no control over any of that, right? So the system being more expensive to get in, accessories prices having to go up because of taxes, Nintendo has no control, right? It is what it is. But they do have control in the software. Because, look, the software is also sold digitally. Yeah, physical is still the majority of Nintendo's own game sales are physical. And yes, it does technically cost more to get that physical unit into the United States, as an example, than it does before due to tariffs. However, when we're talking about Switch 1 games, haven't you kind of already made your bread and butter? Isn't just getting any additional sales nothing but profits? That's what's so weird. Everything about them has just gotten more expensive. And even the recently announced Animal Crossing New Horizons stuff, right? The free content is awesome and amazing. And I'm really glad Nintendo's offering it. Whether or not it means Animal Crossing is farther away, the new one, or whether it means it's actually closer because they're just trying to reactivate the fan base, I don't know, right? Those are theories. We have no facts on this. It's all just guesswork. But everyone's focused on the $5 for the most part, right? The $5 you pay to get 4K. I think it's 4K. Pretty sure they said 4K. I could be wrong. But the $5 you pay to get an upgraded resolution, right? You paid to get 4 more people to play with online, and you paid for game chat features, well, mouse mode as well. Throw that in there. That sounds cool. You know, you can have videos of your friends if they happen to have a camera plugged in. But what it doesn't sound like to me is anything much more than what the free updates were for things like Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey included a resolution bump with a free update. Other games included resolution and FPF bumps with a free update. You see other companies like No Man's Sky doing entire upgrades to the whole quality of the game with free updates. But Nintendo still wants to have that $5. Now, look, I don't give a crap about the $5. Want to be very clear. I don't think it's that big a deal. I think if it's not worth your $5, just don't pay it. The game is still great as it is, and you're getting free content. Don't really think it's worth like throwing a big hullabaloo. But the problem isn't that individual decision for Animal Crossing and the $5. Again, it's your money, spend it how you want. It's just another like little grain of sand onto the messaging Nintendo has around Switch 2. And while some of the messaging can't be avoided, the system being $450, I don't know if Nintendo could have avoided that in the way the world's economy works today. The controllers being more expensive, the accessories being more expensive, heck, even some of the pricing of the amiibo, maybe some of this stuff was really hard to avoid if you wanted to maintain Switch-like profit margins. It was going to probably be extremely hard to avoid some of that, but the software is matching that, and it didn't need to do that. I'm not one of those people that's silly enough to think Nintendo's your friend. They are a corporate, they are a greedy company, as all corporate capitalistic companies are. Nothing they did is out of the kindness of their heart. All of it's with trying to create customer loyalty, make you come back, make you spend more money. That's what they're trying to do. So all companies are trying to do. And Nintendo has one of the most loyal fan bases of all the companies out there. So obviously there's a lot of people that are perfectly okay with what Nintendo's doing, and well, a lot of people that are a little bit ticked off. I've heard for a while about how Nintendo has been like a budget company in the past. And I was a little confused because look, we were $60 games before. Yeah, we had $50 back on Wii, but $50 wasn't, that far removed from being normal back then. $60 was just sort of becoming normal in the HD era. Nintendo went to HD. They're charging $60 like everybody else. Now Nintendo's going to somewhere between HD and 4K. Like everyone else, they're charging $70. So I get it, but people used to pay $40 for like DS and 3DS games. So in 2017, you bought like Samus Returns for $40. I believe it was 40. Even if not that one, there was Sushi Striker, right? Whatever. You buy it for $40 on 3DS. Fast forward 8 years, $70. Feels like a pretty big increase over an 8-year period, doesn't it? And yeah, they didn't just jump to 70, they jumped to 60. They already jumped handheld gamers up $20. And we all get it. If you were a home console gamer, none of this is surprising, right? Going to 60, going to 70 just kind of was expected. But then 80 for Mario Kart, again, a messaging problem. Nintendo doing things they really don't need to do to maintain the success they already have and would help change the narrative. Look, Nintendo's always going to be litigious when it comes to piracy. They're going to go after emulators. They're going to go after people streaming their games illegally. They're going to go after ROMs. They're going to go after ROM sites. They're going to go after distribution. They've been doing that stuff for 30, 40 years. Nothing new there. People maybe didn't pay as much attention to it back then. The internet wasn't as prevalent, but that's nothing new. We know Nintendo's going to be that way. We know Nintendo's also going to have some of the lowest developer turnover in the industry, generally less than 2% year over year. We know their employees are also going to be paid and compensated fairly and well with bonus, vacation time, and full benefits. We also know Nintendo doesn't believe in using like temporary contract positions for their main development teams. They actually prefer you to hire full-time, make you a full salaried employee. We know they like to promote from within, giving promotion opportunities to people with ideas. We have heard that some of the best ideas like Splatoon, it came from Nintendo allowing their developers to experiment and pitch ideas. They allow this to happen every single year. So you get things like that, or jump rope challenge, right? You get Codename Steam. You get this from developers pitching ideas. This is cool. Nintendo seems to have a very healthy employee relationship. We know their CEOs, their corporate heads. They're not getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars a year. They're not getting a bunch of stock bonuses that give them an additional 500 million on top. That's not how Nintendo operates. Most of their money, one, pays taxes. For those who don't know, Nintendo doesn't borrow. They don't create debt. So because of that, they actually pay the maximum tax penalties in Japan on their profits. And then they kind of bank the rest. Now they reinvest. They reinvest in movies, theme parks, right? Merchandise, partnerships, hiring people like, I don't know, how about From Software to make Dust Bloods, right? Nintendo's footing that bill. That's why it's an exclusive. Nintendo's footing the bill for the game. That's how that works, especially if it's not a timed exclusive. If Nintendo just outright owns the IP, that's because Nintendo paid 100% for the IP to be made. We don't know yet if it's a timed exclusive, a temporary exclusive, or a full one where Nintendo owns it. But what we do know is Nintendo's footing some of the bill. That's them investing their money. That's what Nintendo does. There's these positives, all these things that the high morale, the fair the fair compensation, the paying the employees well, that helps lead to such amazing games getting made. The money gets reinvested back into the company and back into the corporation and back into trying to do things that will make them even more money. But unfortunately, despite that process, that doesn't change the public messaging. The public messaging is Nintendo's more expensive than ever. They're no longer a budget system. They're playing with the big boys. They're now your handheld portable PlayStation with PlayStation-like prices and PlayStation-like practices, even PlayStation-like games, Final Fantasy VII, right? Cyberpunk. We're getting the big AAAs now, which is exciting, but also, hey, people start to look at the platform differently now. This is no longer, a massively upgraded from 3DS. We're now trying to upgrade from Switch, and the upgrade seems to be, we need more money than ever. And yeah, I do think PlayStation and Xbox and other companies over time are going to still somehow, some way, I don't even know how, they're going to return to making Nintendo look like they're more budget than the rest. Crazy to think about, but like the economy we're in right now, it's crazy. And this isn't me trying to diss those companies. It's just, I don't see a path with like the rumored of the specs and the power coming from like PlayStation 6 and Xbox. I don't really see how they get there and are not more expensive than this. Like even like a downgraded digital only handheld model, whatever, like all of it sounds significantly more expensive than this is. And Nintendo is struggling to even make a profit off selling this in the US. You have to buy software to be profitable. And you might go, well, that's a normal business strategy. It's not normal for Nintendo. Nintendo actually likes to make profit on their hardware and their software, something they do differently than everyone else. But in the US, at least, they're breaking even or maybe even slightly losing money per sale. Not a big deal to us. We shouldn't care. We're consumers. But the problem is, if you're going to sell a $450 device that does feel more premium in the hand, and I will say, despite having this grip on here, even without the grip, it does feel more premium. It feels more hefty. It feels nice. What we don't want is all the other things on top of that. Like some people can stomach the price of the system, but they can't stomach the $80 Mario Kart and $70 for Legend ZA. I know it's normal. It's normal. It's a messaging problem. And I just don't know there's anything Nintendo can do to fix it. Sure, Nintendo can never charge $80 for a Switch 2 edition or a brand new game ever again, right? They could just never do it. But the messaging is not going to go away. It doesn't matter how many games Nintendo releases. I talked in the past, maybe Nintendo just needs one big game. And people in the comment section were roasting me and getting mad at me. You think everything just goes away? I'm like, no, it provides a distraction. That's more where I was going. It provides a distraction. A big, new, exciting game of the year looking game provides a welcome distraction. It will distract the public from all these other things that have kind of stacked up to create a negative sentiment. So, what's the answer then? If it's not just one big game or two big games or 10 big games. I don't have one. I know what a lot of people want the answer to be. They want it to be, hey, they'll renege on the $5 for Animal Crossing New Horizons and just give us the update for free. They want them to just cut the price of Mario Kart World at least down to $70, if not down to $60, right? They want Switch 2 editions to have their prices slashed. They want all 4K 60 FPS updates to be free. They want Nintendo to drop the lawsuit against Palworld and admit it was a mistake. Not just drop it, but admit it's a mistake. They want them to change the policy about bricking systems that's been around since the Wii. They want Nintendo to drop the price of the system itself. And reality is Nintendo's probably going to do absolutely none of it. So what is the answer? Well, there's a couple things Nintendo can do that would at least mitigate some. Be more transparent. Put on, I guess, more exciting showcases. A little hard. You don't control when games are ready, right? Like development takes what it takes, but you try to put on more exciting showcases. You can try to be more transparent with your messaging. You can not have people like Dub Bowser going out there and tell you if you can't afford a Switch 2, hey, you can still buy a Switch 1. Yeah, he said it in a much nicer way than was said in the past when a certain other company got in some controversy saying something very similar. But he still said it. It still didn't sound good, no matter how you try to sugarcoat it, how nice you are about it. Still doesn't sound good. I'm not sure there's anything Nintendo can really do. And even those that are excited about Switch 2, even the ones that love it like me, there's still little things that you're frustrated by. I know, for an example, a lot of people excited for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond are a little frustrated. The marketing's been confusing and hasn't been very clear. There's been very little of it. And maybe we're about to get a big, giant, direct blowout for it. And that would be great. But you were willing to announce a Kirby Direct early. You were willing to announce a Mario Kart World Direct early. You were willing to announce a Switch 2 Direct early. So you're showing you're willing to announce these things early before the week of. I think maybe some relief would have came if you would have did the same for Metroid Prime 4. But that relief is only going to be serving a very minute part of the fan base. But it goes in with that additional messaging that your marketing isn't even very good for the games that you should be excited for. So I don't really know what Nintendo can do. Obviously, as a business, they're doing well. Switch 2 is selling well. The games look like they're selling well. I guess we'll find out on November 4th. At least the game's released so far. We'll see how Nintendo's holiday goes, where they probably go on to smash more records. And look, Nintendo as a business is healthy. And maybe the real answer is just time. Get deeper into the generation. More great games come out. People stop caring as much about these things they care about today. The messaging, the prices, it becomes accepted. It becomes normalized. And as that happens, everything kind of melts away. And all anyone's talking about again is whether or not they like the games coming out. Maybe that's the real answer. I just need to go to sleep and wake up in 2027 or something. I don't know. Because Nintendo's not going to do the things that people want them to do. That's I know someone's going to go down in the comments and they're going to make a list of all these things Nintendo can do. And a lot of it's going to be about lowering prices. And they're not going to do that. And it sucks that I know they're not going to do that. But if you're honest with yourself, when you're saying that, they're not going to do it either. And for many people, sans that, there's nothing they can do to change the narrative. I remember when there was outrage about $70 games. EA, I think, was the first company to do it. Sony got some backlash for it as well when they announced it with PlayStation 5 and launch games and stuff. There was a big uproar about $70 games. That was, 5-6 years ago? It's 2025. Do you hear big uproars over $70 games anymore? Did you hear a big uproar when we went from 50 to 60? Didn't really seem like a big uproar back then. Social media, though, was a little smaller back in those days. So yeah, there was a big uproar, and here we are, and it's still here. Remember all the big uproars, and myself included, over pre-announced day one DLC? Yeah, there's been a lot of backlash, a lot of uproar. Been many years of it happening. It's been now normalized to the point where the backlash isn't as strong as it once was. So maybe the real answer is Nintendo just has to fast forward the clock. People will learn to accept it. And we move on. None of that sounds great, does it? Hey, YouTube. You want to triple my CPM rate sometime? That'd be great. The way this economy is going, the way the world is going, God, if I don't keep like doubling and tripling my year-over-year revenue growth, I'm gonna be in some hot water here, man. I don't mean the kind that you take a shower in. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know we're all struggling out there. You guys have a good one. Stay safe. Stay happy. I hope you had a good Halloween. Hopefully, you're going to have a wonderful November and you do get to celebrate and be thankful this month, even if, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to have maybe a big Thanksgiving like you're used to. I know there are some families out there really struggling and going to have to cancel plans like that. I hope you still choose to get together and spend time together and be thankful, because really it's not about the turkey and the stuffing and all that stuff, although it's delicious. It's really just about being thankful for what you do have, and that includes your loved ones. Hopefully I can count you guys among some of my loved ones, at least in my little online family. Have a good one, folks.